Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel, and this is a video that I wasn't, going to record and put up as an episode on the channel, but basically this is my Aries M45 X-Class. I think I'd spoken before that I'd bought a Polarstar jack to convert it to HPA, and I think what happened was it wasn't going to be something that I was going to be recording for the channel. I was just going to go ahead. Let me just fix this camera mount here because it sometimes plays up. I was just going to go ahead and get the thing built and talk about it afterwards. If I can find this right one, there we go. Let's fix this camera mount because it's coming loose. So I was just going to get it built and then I was going to talk about it on camera afterwards. And I bought the Polarstar jack. This is what I purchased. It was the Polarstar jack V2 Aries EFCS. And I think I mentioned in the other video that I was going to have to see if this would work with this gun. And long story short, Aries EFCS gearboxes come in two styles. Okay, so you've got their sort of more sports line style gearbox that comes in stuff like their honey badgers and the cheaper AEGs that they do. Usually this can be defined as their polymer series, anything that has just a fire selector on the one side. So you've got your normal left hand side selector, and that is an Aries EFCS gearbox. Now, with Aries products, like the M45 X-Class, which shouldn't be confused with the normal M45, I think it was the S-Class. So the more premium Aries models, when they've got a version 2 gearbox, they do it a little bit differently. And the reason that I'm aware of this is because over the years, I've dealt with M45 X-Classes. Let's say we've had issues with gearbox casings. You order a replacement gearbox casing from Aries. This is back in the bespoke days, of course. Aries sends you a replacement gearbox casing and it's incompatible with their Pro line stuff. So, their M4X class, which doesn't have the sort of pistol mag, it has like your normal M4 receivers. Anything X class or anything premium, their M110, SR25, stuff like that. Anything that's got the fire selector on both sides, so ambidextrous fire selectors, it's different. And I'm trying to be as concise as possible because I knew this was going to be an issue, but I didn't know how much of an issue it was going to be. And I was in the Discord group the other night and I was just, sort of sharing my camera while on there, and I was putting this together and I knew I was going to run into an issue, and I did. So when you fit the trigger boards, which is this part here, from the Polarstar kit, you have a little micro switch that sits here. So on the normal gearboxes, you've got like a selector plate. The switch is here. As the selector plate comes over, it actuates that switch, and that's what gives you semi and full auto. Now, of course, the problem with that is, with the X-Class, you get this on here, you have a series of cogs. So you've got one that sits on the right hand side, and you have like an intermediary gear that goes through to the other side that functions the other cog. And if I can find it here, the old board, so the old electric board with the X-Classes, looks a little bit different because it has this Hall effect sensor that slips in under this arm, which is actually for your safety. So this slips underneath there, and the way that your selector tells the EFCS system that you want full auto or 3-round burst or whatever is a little magnet on the selector. Now, how do we get around that? Because we need to actuate it here. You can't just wire in a Hall effect sensor because you have to give it power for it to work, which is an issue we ran into when doing the MDRX, which I'll be covering that, don't worry. So how do we get around it? Well, luckily this is just a switch. So with the MDRX, it's a little bit more different because it has to use the Hall effect sensor without having like an external switch to go between the two. So all I've done is I've gone with some 2 small wires soldered to the board where that switch was. I've made a hole in the gearbox casing here, which I've just put this red heat shrink on just to protect those wires. And what I've actually done is I've fitted this switch just behind where normally you'd have your bushings or bearings in the gearbox casing. And all I did was I took a little drill, I marked out roughly where I wanted it to be, took a little drill bit, drilled 2 holes, and then literally just sat here for like 20 minutes with a file, just getting it as perfectly fit as possible. And it paid off in the end because I managed to file this perfectly to the shape of the micro switch, so that when the micro switch is pushed in from the other side, it doesn't require glue because it's literally an interference fit, and it was quite, you know, quite a nice fitment where I had to really push it to get it in there. With my idea being that when this sits on here, instead of this magnet affecting that Hall effect sensor, this cam comes around anyway. You just get it into place here. Is that in place? I've got something stuck to the magnet here. So as this sits in the slot, this comes around because it has to have this cam to actuate this arm, which blocks the trigger, and that is your safety. So because it has this cam, we can actually use that feature, change where the switch goes, and as we come round to full auto, like so, it's pressing the switch. Now, I could have mounted the switch a little bit lower, but I wanted to make sure, I didn't want to, let's for instance say that, you know, full auto's here. I didn't want it to just touch the switch for full auto. I wanted it to, we're going to be on safe here, so there's plenty of space, safe, 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 and then it comes into full auto, and then when we lock it in place, there's not going to be any sort of issue of it almost reaching and having like an intermittent issue. So I moved the switch off the board to there, filed a perfectly rectangle slot in the gearbox, and just so happened that I thought I was going to have to glue it in. Just so happens that the fitment on the gearbox casing is so nice and tight that I just push this through, and it never has any amount of force on it anyway, so it's going to work. And that's how I got round it. Now, I was initially, so I took this apart. I hadn't done this modification yet, and I just left it because I'd been down to HC2. I don't know if I mentioned to you guys. I'd also picked up another AKM because of that issue I had with the furniture that I'd bought. So we'll be getting around to that. So I thought today, I grabbed the AKM. I thought, I'm going to go record a video putting this furniture on, come back upstairs, and this gun is still in bits on the bench. So I've done the modification to get it to work. So I did think about filming it, but honestly, it would have been the most boring content ever. So I literally just thought, I'll just show you what I've done. And I'll take you along for the ride on the last leg to see if this thing actually works. So we can place the jack in here, make sure we don't catch any wires. This should be out the way. The only reason I've put the red heat shrink, I only add red at this size, it's just to help protect the wires, keep them a bit more rigid, to stop them like pulling and snagging and breaking that connection. We can put this trigger back in, like so, if I can get this situated in place. So yeah, Aries have always done things a little bit differently, but I'm hoping this keeps, because I've loved this gun so much, I'm hoping that it keeps the keeps me from selling it. So we're going to pop this back into place here, like so, like that. There we go, and we can screw this thing back together, and hopefully we don't have any more issues. I'm not going to curse it to say that should be, you know, all done and dusted. We just need to put it together now. So I'm hoping that was the most difficult thing that I'll need to do, and we can get this thing even quieter than it currently already is. This is I've had this as an electric gun for a long time, and I always loved it. It was a very what's the word I'm looking for? It was a very enjoyable gun to use, plenty accurate. It's got a nice barrel and hop rubber in there. I've never used the other front end that I've got for it, but I could if I wanted to. And yeah, I'm hoping, because although I don't do electric guns anymore, I do have HPA stuff. And I think what I'm going to do is maybe do a new, fresh Cerakote job on this. Maybe we'll do something a little bit more fun. This is done in just OD green, not the Magpul OD green, just normal OD green. I think I want to change the suppressor as well and put one of my STFUs on there, which might need a little bit of modification to get that to work. Because the rail, the suppressor, this is actually a Silverback Mark 23 suppressor, which goes straight on, because the Ares M45X class, for whatever reason, again, Ares just throwing in some random jank there. It's 16mm clockwise thread. And I honestly believe Ares did that just so they could sell you barrel accessories that you can't just go and get off the shelf. But unfortunate for Ares, because they did sell suppressors and flash hiders and all that stuff. But unfortunately for Ares, the Silverback Mark 23 suppressors were literally perfect for this gun. So I don't think I even need this, do I? No. So that is kind of irrelevant. Don't think it's even really worth putting on. Obviously the pins and the capacitor and everything on there is going to get in the way. So we can try this now and see if it works. So there's no air connected to this, obviously. And hopefully you'll be able to hear this, but that might just sound like the microswitch to you, but it is firing. But if I hold this down, perfect. So it works. Whether it still works when the gun's back together, we'll find out. So mission accomplished, I think. This is like the intermediary gear. I need to put this back on, which is very easily done. We just take that, make sure we're not hitting any wires, which we're not. Place that back through the gearbox. And I've been an advocate for this replica for ages. I've always said how good this replica is. Many people doubted me. I can't remember if I did a video on how good this shot. I honestly can't remember. Anyone that used to come down to the old bespoke store in Slough and spoke to me about this platform knows how passionate I was, and those people that did commit to buying into this platform really did see how well this platform does. You know, Ares always has a little bit of jank. So the trigger is playing up a little bit there. I think that could be down to the screw. I don't think it did this before. That could be an issue that we need to rectify, because when we come off safe, it's going to get a little bit stuck. And this plate that sits on the side here has this little pin, and it's got no way of removing it if you can't grab it. And I have broken these before, and if you break them, good luck getting a spare. So you have to be very, very careful. I'll show you this typical Aries jankiness as soon as I get it off. So that is a screw with no head on it. Yeah, I know, right? So all I'm going to do, just for speed, I'm going to get a file and I'm just going to take the smallest amount off here. Just to stop it catching. Just polish it up a bit. This is a very like fine file. I'm not taking tons of material off here. Just polishing the surface. And we did have a lot of guns from Aries back in the day that had selector issues, like to do with the safety and such, where the triggers needed filing down. So this isn't like anything out of the ordinary for Aries. I've never witnessed it on this gun, but it could just be the way that it's gone back together. So it's still sticking there. Not the greatest trigger on these micro switches, but it's going to have to do. So we'll just continue. Slightly filing this back. Because I searched the internet for answers to if this engine from Polarstar labelled up as fitting the Aries EFCS, if it fit the X-Class, and I could not find anything. I'm not saying nobody's done it, but I could not find anything online, any kind of publication to show that somebody had done it. So I thought, well, although I didn't film me initially taking this apart, that should be fine there. I'm going to talk you through what you need to do if you're thinking about doing this yourself. And you just have to be very careful because, like I say, getting the spares for this stuff and getting the correct spares other than the generic spares that Aries just assume that you need. It was almost like years ago that you'd speak to someone at Aries and they didn't quite understand what you wanted. Like it took a hell of a lot of effort to get through to them what you actually needed. I remember many times recording videos for Aries and relaying it to the distributor, which relayed it to Aries. There we go. So that's in together. Apart from that modification, like if you're just fitting it into a normal Aries, like a Honey Badge or whatever, and you know, we've got things now like the Aries have done their own HPA engine, but I really don't recommend it. Don't recommend it at all. So this is on safe. Doesn't really matter where this one goes, I don't think, as long as it lines up with where it needs to be. Like so. So it just needs to be pointing the correct way, which it does. And hopefully we can fit this back in and be on the way to having this done. I don't think I'm forgetting anything, but if I am, I'll have to have it back apart. So the engine or the gearbox goes in without a hitch. I took this apart last week, so I'm going to have to remember where I put everything to put this back together. Make sure we can see through, we're not hitting any wires. Might have installed this from this side. Yeah, there we go. So that pin goes in there. We can actually put the rear body pin in because it doesn't affect the upper receiver. So we can put that in to hold the gearbox together. Like so. This is a 2.5. There we go, 2.5. What I am going to do, if I can, I'm going to put the spring guide back in with, obviously without the spring and the washer, just to cap the back of that gearbox off. Which is a 6mm Allen key. That's your quick spring change system. Right, so before I took this apart, if you're familiar with these guns, you know they have this hinged stock system. And on this hinged stock system, they have this, which is electrical connectors. So you've got your battery in your stock tube, which would be attached to this, which is like this here. So this goes in, sits like that, you secure it in place, and then whenever your stock's folded, your battery's disconnected, and then when you put your stock back together, it connects the contacts. These on the Aries can come loose. So inside here, you've got like these bullet connectors on springs, and the little grub screw that holds these wires in, they can come loose. So that was quite a common thing as well. So I'm going to be negating that, hopefully, if it will allow me to do so. I'm not sure if it will. If it doesn't, it doesn't. We'll see if we can get away with doing this. I'm just hoping that that's the same thread, which I think it is. See how far we can thread this in first. Making sure we don't snag the wires. Just move the wires out the way. Like that. Should that be enough? Sling plate, does that fit on? So that's how you go about securing that on. Now what we could do, which does create a bit of a failure point, we could keep the folding stock. We can't use the bullet connectors because we need the data wire from the FCU. What we could do is keep it folding for storage, where we just fit this back in. So it goes back on like that. And you have this funky doodad, which, let me get this through here. So it's like the thread of the buffer tube that goes through and secures this on. And then what you do, I imagine Aries has a special tool for this, but whatever that tool is, if it exists, I don't have it. So you have to just spin this round and then you have to tap it with a pin. Now what we could do is put this back on as usual. Because there's a method in my madness here, which I'll share with you in just a moment. Let's put this back on. You're meant to put like obviously the cap on there for the stock, and there should be like another nut for it, there, like that ring. So this ring goes on. I suppose we can just put this back in so we don't lose it. Again, same weird little system here. Just brush that up onto the buffer tube to sort of help lock it in place. So what we could do is have it like that. Wire goes in. So when we're storing it, obviously we've got the battery. Now we could still fire it folded. This is obviously hanging out, which is a bit naff, but what that means is once we've got our stock on, if I pull this back through, so I think I'll be changing this stock, but once we've got our stock on, like this, we technically wouldn't need to take the stock off to fit the battery, because we could just plug the battery in with the FCU, shove it in the back here with the wire, push the battery in, sort of lock it in place. You guys will have to let me know. It does make the receiver a little bit bigger. Me personally, I'm probably never going to fold it, but there's time for me to take this back off, of course. Just the last thing I want is it to like stretch the wires. But there you go. So that's on. I can't remember if I have to loosen off the gearbox to get this feed tube in. So this feed tube interfaces with the magazines. No, we should be good there. So we can put that back on. For that we have some little flat-headed screws. I'm hoping this gun still shoots as good as it did with its original gearbox. Obviously it's going to be much quieter. I think I'll modify one of my STFU suppressors, so what I'll have to do is modify the suppressor to 16mm thread. It shouldn't be a drama at all because we've already modified one to fit the Evo, which was 18x1. And thin it down at the back here so it fits inside the rail. So that's that back on. We have the bolt catch system, so this goes in after the gearbox has gone in, usually. We basically just push this down, let that fit into place. And we've got a little pin to hold that in. We'll tap this back in here with a pin punch and a hammer. Let's do my hammer. Could whack this back in. Like that. We've got to put the selectors on, so you have two. The longer one, it's got a little stopper and a spring that you have to be very wary of. Why is that selector position changed? It should be good. They're both still lined up, so we should be fine. Can move it back to safe there. I think it's a 1.5. Might be a 2. 1.5. Don't have to go overboard on these because you are screwing it into a pot metal gear on either side, so you have to be careful of that. So the smaller selector, I mean you could switch these round if you're left-handed I suppose and have the longer selector on this side. As far as I can tell they're pretty much identical in terms of their geometry. Are we going to be able to fit this through? Do we have to take this off? Or am I going to have to drill that out? Because that fitment won't go through there. Interesting. How thick is that? Let's have a look. just over 11 mil. What's the space there? We're at 10. Yeah, we should be okay to modify that. So let's do that, because I do have a spare one of these. So we're going to go to 11.5. We'll do it to 11 first. So it's always safer to go up in stages. These do run thinner. These do run thinner pistol grips because they have those thin motors. So they do have like a realistic pistol grip thickness, which is another thing I liked about the X-Class. You don't get that on the Sportsline model. So I'm going to bump this up to 11.5. Just a tiny amount of plastic. What that means is I haven't got to take this apart to get this through. It should just go straight through now, which it does. Sorry if this is becoming a long video. Oh, we've caught the wires there. I don't know why these wires from Polarstar aren't sheathed. They just kind of all hang out together and then it's sheathed from the back. It just wants to grab them. Sorry, I'm just putting this, trying to push these wires out of the way so I can get this grip on. Which isn't plain ball at all. Can we get this on without damaging them? No, it wants to push that wire. There we go. Right, we need to put these screws in. Use this long screwdriver here. And of course, it's not magnetised. Let's magnetise this thing. So this actually comes with 4 grip screws instead of 2. So we will be using all 4 to hold this on the best that we can. Just need to make sure we don't over tighten them and strip out that metal plate that sits in the bottom, which is easy. If you've done a full gearbox teardown, it's easy to forget that part. Put it all back together and then realise you can't screw your grip in because that plate's not there. So I'll try and wrap this up as quick as I can because we're getting way past the 30-minute mark here. So we're just nipping this up. This might be an issue if we have to change this. In fact, I think they're just plastic threads on these, if I remember. If I can get this thing apart. No, it looks like that's a metal insert, right? Which isn't going to want to go through there, of course. So I might have to draw that out as well. Is that a metal insert or isn't it? Might just be plastic. Let's try drilling it out. We'll go with the 11 first. 11 goes straight through. And this could be a little bit dangerous, so what I'm going to do, I do have one of these Panovice things, which should make it a little bit safer. We'll lock it into place in here. And when it snatches like that, that would be enough to rip it out your hands. I think it does actually have a metal insert in there. I've seen silver filings come off that. Hard to tell with those. Right. So yeah, safety first. Don't tear your hands apart. I'm going to whack that back on. We can now slip that over. These screws you also have to be careful with because they love to strip. So just be very soft with them, like hand tight. Don't try and torque them down too much. Whether you're doing the, you know, whether you're fitting this conversion or you're just using the electric gun, but a bit crunchy there to begin with, but we're okay. Right, we should get some air for this thing because even though it's a long video, I think you'd be disappointed if I didn't fire it. So I'll get a tank and then we'll give this a quick shoot. Right, I've got a tank. We're going to start at about 80 psi. This engine isn't set up, so you know, disclaimer, we haven't, you know, set any of the settings on this FCU. We're literally just checking to see it works. So we'll plug this in here. Just slide that battery in there to protect it. And we'll connect the air up and see what it does. It might leak, we never know. No leaks. Seems to work okay. The upper receiver is very unique on this, so we slide the upper receiver in place like that. It doesn't have the hop or anything like that fitted. I think this is the only issue where we could get into, but I'm pretty sure these are just an M4 nozzle, same as their normal X classes. They use a tiny hop unit. Let's screw this in first, then we'll get to the good stuff. And here is one of the unique features of the X class is you have these quick detach front ends. So the hop unit's attached to here. It has a locking system, so you basically line the hop unit up. You pull this tab at the bottom here, slide it in, rotate it back, and we're good to go. Now you heard how loud that was before. There's a lot of air moving through that. It's not as nice as like a micro switch. You know, I could pull the box out and tune that micro switch lever that sits there. It's like a 249 style switch. We could get that better. Do we have any BBs? Let's see. Now I could show you a mag because I've got a ton of mags for this thing. Short ones, long ones, ones as big as your head. So there's 3 magazines that you can get for these. So you got these little dinky ones. I can't remember how much these hold. I think it's like, I want to say like 55 or something like that. I'm not too sure. These are like 125, the long mags. So you've got plenty of ammo there. I've got tons of these. I think I've got like 6 or 7 of the long ones and like 8 of the shorts, because they used to come in the box with a long mag and a short mag. And to be honest, these mags have been pretty damn good for how long I've had them. Haven't had to take them apart, do anything to them, just literally run them as and when. I generally ran this on 0.3s and it ran absolutely fine. It wasn't a fast firing gun on the fire rate. It was very torquey, so it was a slow fire rate. So that fire rate there is quicker than it was on its electric motor. So there you have it. We've got our Ares M45 X Class, a gun that I've been a bit of an unofficial ambassador for the years, just because I love mine and I used to talk about it a lot. We need to, I think I'm going to change this and just put the stock tube in and just have a stock tube, because honestly I think this is just kind of pointless. But you guys let me know in the comments down below what you think. I just think it's like another point of failure. Because like you've got to tighten that, you've got to tighten the ring in there, you've got to tighten the ring this side, all just to have it folding, which when it was in its electric form, you couldn't use it when it was folded anyway. So it was just more for a storage thing. Like they used to come in these fancy cases where you could fold the stock, pull the front end off, and it would fit in like a really small package. So that is HPA in my M45 X Class. I've of course got a load of bits that I don't need, all the wiring and the electric boards. So happy days, it's good to go. Hope you don't mind me taking you along for the ride. You didn't see me strip it, of course, because I was doing it, you know, off camera, but there it is. It's further along than my MDRX, which I do need to get to. Again, just one of them things. Thanks for tuning in for this long. Maybe this has been of use to you, because no one on the internet has covered fitting this engine into the M45 X Class. So hopefully now there will be a video out there for others seeking information like I was. If you can't find the information, I suppose you've got to make it yourself, haven't you? So thanks for tuning in as always. Like, comment, subscribe. You know, loads of people that watch the channel, I think 50 to 55% of people aren't subscribed to the channel, which is baffling. So stick around, hit the subscribe button, it means a lot. Join the Jaeger Precision Discord, you can find it in the description down below. And as always, from me and Messy Bench, we'll see you in the next one.